Hey folks, it's BattleMode from eXplorminate here. I thought I'd have a bit of a play with this tier maker thing that I've seen people using online. And yeah, the general theme of this one is I'm just going to get all the 4X games that are in my library and I actually play, or I have played, and just kind of rank them based on whether they're, on their relative strengths and weaknesses. So I'm just going to make a caveat here. Some of these games will probably be considered to be sort of 4X adjacent, what we'd call 4X adjacent. So they're not necessarily, like based on the three sorts of core games from the originals, like Master of Orion, Civilization, Master of Magic. They might be something a little bit different. Like I've actually put Sins of a Solar Empire on here because people will argue until they're blue in the face whether this is a 4X or it's an RTS or whatever. And I think just look, I'm really not interested in debating people on whether something is a 4X or not. Like we just do this day in, day out on our Discord, and it's just a really boring argument. It's so like, just take it all with a grain of salt. It's meant to be kind of fun and it's not too serious. Secondly, I must apologize for the absolutely shoddy state of some of these thumbnails. I think if I'd have spent a bit more time on it, I'd have gone through and pulled the icon files from Windows, so that the Steam and GOG icon files were in there as well. But like, so I mean, look, Star Ruler 2 and Stellaris, these are pretty bad. I'm not gonna, I do apologize for this, but I'm not gonna go back and change it because I just can't be bothered. I'm not that fussed. So yeah, so sorry about that. I'm just gonna take a quick moment to explain, what the criteria that I've kind of used. Again, this is kind of loose, all right? So, and this is very much my personal, this is my personal list, as if that isn't patently obvious. Let's just make that clear. So I have to say that because every time that eXplorminate kind of puts out any kind of top list, or when we start talking about our opinions on games, some people get really upset, and there's always loads of arguments, and it always causes some sort of debate. And I think that, look, let's just get it out of the way. This is just purely my opinion, and that is an obvious thing to say. But yeah, there is a little bit more to the tier list than just ones in S being better than the ones at D. Okay, so let's just go through them relatively quickly. An S tier game then will be a game with very, very few weaknesses. And it usually, for me at least, has to be either defining of the genre, or it has to innovate in multiple ways and be so significantly different from anything that came before it that it is it stands out as a shining example of the genre, or what the genre can be. A tier games are going to be like S tier games generally, but it might just be lacking that criteria of either being, having several, being innovative in several areas, or it might have, kind of a critical flaw that would otherwise make it an S tier game, but it isn't quite that level. All right, so yeah, it's basically overwhelmingly good, but it might have a number of issues, or one significant issue that stops it from being the top tier. I'd say B tier. I should have said this at the start, by the way. None of the games on this list are bad games, okay? Like, D isn't awful. This is not like the shit tier, okay? That's not what this is. But I'll work down to that. So B tier games are going to be really, really good games. Like, these are going to be games that you will see scoring 90% and more on games review sites, and very positive on Steam, right? So these are going to be really good games, but they are going to have a number of flaws, again, which kind of prevent them being S or A tier. So it might be that this game is like, it would be an S tier, but it's got one critical problem, or it's got several, it's really innovative in one particular way, but it's not quite of the sort of polish and quality that you'd expect of an S tier game. C is going to be like a good game, but it's got a number of flaws that kind of prevent it from, from me wanting to play it that often. So these will often be games that sometimes there will be older games that are more difficult to play now because they are kind of old, or games where like games where they were good for a bit and then they got patched and they got broken. So I might be preempting some of these games here by the description, but certain things that will have happened to the game, or when it was released, it might have been really badly bugged and they never fixed it, that kind of thing. And then at the bottom is D tier, and the D tier games are games that are kind of worth playing for certain people, and these might well be, you know, games in the D tier might well be people's favorite games, but just personally speaking, I don't get on with them so well, to the point of I can recognize that it's a good game in certain ways, but I personally don't like it. So again, anybody who knows me will probably be able to guess what some of the D tier games I'm going to put in here, but I don't know, there might be some surprises for people, I think. Okay, so let's go through it, and yeah, I think this will be fun because I like talking about games, and there are a couple of games on this list that I haven't played a lot. Okay, so I want to make that clear. There are 2 games in particular that I picked out. Okay, so Pax Nova, I've probably got about 10 hours in this game, and that's not enough for me to consider that, you know, knowing the game very well. In fact, I don't think I've even completed a game of this, but I've played it enough to kind of get my at least to be able to give a cursory opinion. And exactly the same with Space Tyrant as well. Space Tyrant is another game that I played, and I played it through a couple of times, but it's quite a short game. And yeah, so but these 2 are the only games on the list that I've not played at least a few times. Sorcery King as well is another one that I've not played as much as perhaps I'd like. But all the rest of these games, yeah, these 2 as well, I haven't played quite as much as some of the others. But the vast majority of these games I've played a lot, and in some cases I've got hundreds of hours. Like Dominions 5, I've got it's getting on 500 hours in this game now, and Shadow Empire, I've got hundreds and hundreds of hours, and I can't count them because a lot of them were when the game was in beta and pre-release. So, but I've got probably about 400 or 500 hours in Shadow Empire as well. And same with Remnants of the Precursor. So loads of hours in this game. So yeah, that's I just thought I'd get that out of the way, because you might when you see some of the scores, you might be like, okay, this is not the game that I know that Ben is describing here. And so you know, I just be aware that I will generally say if I feel that my knowledge of the game is kind of lacking. Okay, I'm going to go through them in alphabetical order. I don't know if these are fully in alphabetical order. Like they're close enough for me for the time being. Okay, let's start. Armageddon Empires. What is this game? Armageddon Empires is the top of my list of games, right? That when I talk about it, there's tumbleweeds. So like I'll often talk about this game on Discord or you know, in Steam forums and stuff, and when I mention it, I don't know, I just get a wall of silence, and I can't figure out if it's that people generally just haven't heard of it, which is amazing to me because it's an incredibly good game, or if it's because everybody hates it, they think it sucks, and you know, they're just like, how dare you bring up such an embarrassing game? Like I can't figure it out. Like what, I don't know, there's this weird like wall of silence that I get. So Armageddon Empires is a B tier game. So this means that it's a really, really good game. Like I consider it, I've been playing this game for years. I know it quite well. I've probably got 100 or so hours in it, I'd guess. But this game was this game was by a company called Cryptic Comet, and they released a bunch of other sort of 4X-ish games like Solium Infernum, and yeah, they're more based around board games. So it really is like a digital board game, this one. One of the things that might put people off Armageddon Empires, now I think about it, is that it's made in Flash. And or is it Flash? I think it is. I think it's a Flash game, or it's some kind of like janky old thing like Flash. So it's a bit odd, but and the user interface takes a bit of getting used to, because it really is like a board game. But it's a post-apocalyptic game. It's a little bit like Shadow Empire in that respect. It's kind of set on a post-apocalyptic planet that's been devastated by some intergalactic war. There are 4 factions, and it's also a deck building game. Well, it's not a deck building game, but you have to build your armed forces, from a bunch of cards essentially, and they've got points value, and you've got hero cards, and you've got like armed forces, you know, like kind of ground units, and you've got air units that work in a different way. And then there are tiles that you can place, like kind of resource tiles that you can purchase. So it's very much a board game, but it's also, you know, it's only single player. If Armageddon Empires was a multiplayer game and it worked well, I would say it would be an S tier game, without a shadow of a doubt. It's an incredibly good game, but it's not, and it's never going to be, I don't think, unless somebody just remakes the game completely. So what is it that's good about this game? Well, there's a huge amount of replayability because of the sheer amount of units that you can choose from, the sheer amount of tools at your disposal. You can upgrade these units, each of the units, with kind of weapons, and there's kind of like tactics cards that you can create. It feels a bit of a strange comparison to compare it to Shadow Empire, because they play nothing like one another, but it kind of has some of the loose mechanics around it are kind of similar. But I mean, it's got supply for a start. It's one of the first 4X games that I played that had supply in it, and it wasn't until Shadow Empire came along and Imperiums Greek Wars where you actually had a supply mechanic in there. Just on the just before I go too much further, also, you'll notice that the selection of games here, you might be like, why have you put Civ 4 in there instead of Civ 5 or 6, right? I'm not going to put all the games from all the series in, and I'm kind of picking the ones that I think are the best, right? And I think that, you know, just as an example, I think Civ 4 is better than all the sequels. That's just me. So yeah, just think, and the reason why I bring that up is because I think Aggress's Ancient Rome also had a supply system, which is the prequel game to Imperiums, but I think that Imperiums is a drastically superior game. But anyway, I digress. So Armageddon Empires, it's got 4 really interesting thematic factions. The artwork in the game is really, really nice. It's got all the units, all the cards are all really beautifully drawn. So the artwork style is excellent. It's got a lot of hidden depth. It's very, very heavily based on randomized stuff. So if you really don't like, you know, very heavy games that are dependent on RNG, then you might not like it. But you know, what's wrong with you, man? Go play chess. Yeah, this is a B tier game. What are the problems with Armageddon Empires? Well, it's one of those games that occasionally AI doesn't get a good start, or it picks a bunch of cards that it doesn't know how to use very well. So sometimes you can find, and this is very much like Shadow Empire, sometimes you can find that the game difficulty is drastically different based on, like, dependent on the RNG that you get. So sometimes you can find, really, within the first 20 or 30 turns, the AI might rock up on your doorstep with an army that you just can't really beat. But as you get better at the game, there are ways of mitigating that from happening. So it's like, the more you play the game, basically, the better it gets. The difficulty is for some people, I don't think that they get past that initial learning curve. So Armageddon Empires, it's just been re-released on Steam, and Vic from Crystal Comic has been talking about the possibility of bringing some of his other games over to Steam, and it's not looking good for Solium Infernum, I don't think. Apparently he's got some problem with the copy protection that he's not able to work out. So that's a real shame, because Solium Infernum is a really good game. I didn't actually put it on here because it's a game that is a lot better in multiplayer than it is in single player, and I've never played it in multiplayer, so I didn't really feel qualified to talk about it. But that is also worth looking at. Okay, what we got next? We got AI War 2. AI War 2 today just had a new DLC released. So I forget what it's called now, but it's to do with the Zenith factions. But basically, this game is like, this is what happens when you get a man who cannot stop working, like Chris Park, or the artist formerly known as Chris Park, as I like to call him, because I think it's Chris McElligott Park now. When I interviewed him, he did tell me his name, but he's just been married and he's changed his name. But he's got like a double-barreled name like me now. But yeah, this guy works incredibly hard. Like, seriously, he must be. The amount of coffee he must drink, or meth or something, that he gets through in order to put out the sheer amount of content that he does for this game is absolutely incredible. And he mostly does it on his own. I think he's got some. There's a couple of other people who work with him on it now. But AI War 2 is very much like Sins, and where are we? Where is Star Ruler 2? There we go. Star Ruler 2. It's bordering on an RTS, and in fact, this is much closer to an RTS, I'd say, than even Star Ruler 2 is. It doesn't. One of the things about this, which firmly slot it into being a 4X game, I'd say, in my opinion. And yeah, again, like I say, I'm just not interested in arguing with people over definitions necessarily, but it's very much a 4X game. And the reason why I think that it works well is that you can pause it at any point and you can slow the game down. So if you're one of these people like me who really cannot be bothered with RTS now because it's too fast paced, this AI War does not play like that. You do, like, at the higher difficulty levels, you really do have to you have to know what units are good against what. You have to know your rock paper scissors stuff in it. You have to be able to put your units into certain kind of formations to keep them out of range of certain things. But especially on the lower difficulty levels, that's really not a big thing. In fact, you can pretty much play AI War 2 without worrying too much about the RTS side of it, I'd say. But it's, once you start playing on the AI on difficulty level 6 and 7 and etc., then you've got to really kind of min-max your ability to... That's not really what I mean to say, but you've really got to understand the game mechanics basically, and you need to be a little bit quicker on the old mouse. But it's not a fast-paced RTS in that respect. So what's good about this game, and where is it going to go? AI War 2 for me is somewhere between B and A. It's got some problems, as a game, but they are the problems are being ironed out. I think I'm going to put it in A, and it's not an S tier game, and I'll tell you why. The barrier to entry for AI War 2 is pretty high, and the reason being is because even though it's got some good tutorials, the sheer number of units and just the scope of the game is so big, especially with all the DLC now, that it's quite hard to kind of know how to get into it. That will also crop up in a couple of the other games that I would consider S tier. So reason why AI War for me isn't quite an S tier game, and I'm kind of like, I'm really struggling to know where to put it in amongst these. I don't play it enough for it to be an S tier for me, and yet I'd feel bad putting it in as a B tier game because I think it's an incredible piece of work. So I think I'm gonna put it in A tier. One, the main thing, and this is not going to bother most people, but the main problem that I've got with AI War 2 is I just really do not like the soundtrack, and that's exactly the same problem I had with the first game as well. The music is very good. I just don't think it suits the style of game. It's like, I know, like weird piano music and stuff, and it's just not my thing at all. So sorry, Chris. Don't like the music in AI War, but the game itself it's very, very, very good. It certainly has one of the best game AIs in it I've ever played, and even if I considered, the gameplay in the game to be a bit down here, the strength of the AI, it really, I mean, if we were ranking these games just on AI alone, it would be an S tier game, and it would probably be higher than any of the other games on the list. By like all the other games would be like C, and this is S because it's that good. So why is it good? Well, so let's say, oh, there's so many ways, but the AI is really good at faking you out. So let's say that you've built upon a system, you're expecting it to be attacked. It's like a valuable system for you in some way. The AI might attack it, but while you're throwing all your forces there, suddenly it will do a sneak attack on somewhere else. Like that is kind of beyond most game AIs to do stuff like that, but whereas in AI War 2 that is just standard behavior for it. Once you get to like AI level 6 and 7, it will start doing stuff like that. I've not honestly played AI War 2 enough to be able to give you a detailed description of all the tricks that the AI does, but there's a lot. The other reason why I think it's the other reason why I think it's probably an A tier game and not an S is because it's got too much content in it now for it to be a very streamlined game. To its credit, however, it's very good at basically saying, okay, do you want this bit? Do you want this bit? You know, do you want this faction? Do you want to play with this? How many AI do you want? What level? It's incredibly customizable. So that is one of the reasons why it should be an A and not a B, because it's the customizability of the game is really, really good. I don't like how the units feel when you're like playing with them. They are just, for an RTS game, it just doesn't feel, I don't know, I can't really explain it. I don't like it. It doesn't feel very responsive. I think the controls are a bit clunky and weird. I think that if it wasn't for that, it would probably, yeah, I'd be considering an A tier, an S tier game. But it's, yeah, AI War 2 is good. It's a really, really good game. It's incredibly unique. There's nothing else like it on the market. There's nothing else that plays quite like it. It's got like, it's as much a tower defense game as anything else. Like you very heavily rely on these towers that you build, you know, around these defense systems. Around the systems that you're defending. You can't just map paint with it. You know, you start out in a sort of home location, and the AI is on a world that you've, you know, an undiscovered world, and you can't just like take over system by system, because what happens is you're building up this threat meter, and the more systems you take, the higher the meter goes. And the AI, it's a completely asymmetrical game in that the AI, once it wakes up properly, it will squash you like a bug. And some of the AI, some of the other factions in the game are so incredibly strong that you cannot hope to take them on head to head. You can't take the AI on head to head at the start of the game. So it's a game of, you know, trying to pick your targets carefully. It's very much like Sorcery King in that respect. Sorcery King is the only other game that did anything like that. So yeah, AI War 2, A tier game without a doubt. Well, not without a doubt, because I'm, like I say, it's kind of, I'm putting it here because I'm not sure whether it's a B, A, or an S, but I think I'm going to put it in A. Okay, what have we got next? Next, we've got Age of Wonders 3. Age of Wonders 3 is a B tier game for me. The tactical combat is excellent. It's got some of the best tactical combat in any 4X game I've ever played. The strategic layer of the game is like all the Age of Wonders games, and you know, everything that was kind of based on heroes is kind of, you know, quite basic, but it's also very fun. The problem with, so B-tiered games tend to have, you know, some either a big serious flaw or a bunch of flaws that kind of stop it from being, you know, higher. And I'd say that Age of Wonders 3 for me, it's got the same problem that the Total War games have, which is and the tactical combat is so good, and it's such a focus of the game that it's actually quite intense, and it can take quite a long time. Like the battles in this can last anywhere between sort of 10 minutes up to an hour and a half towards the end of the game. And you know, particularly with the siege maps that you have. And once I've done a couple of those, I'm done. I rarely finish games of Age of Wonders 3, and it's the same with Planetfall as well. Well, and you'll see when we come to that. I think these two are very, very congruent in the way that I feel about them. So these are really, when I was talking to Daz Tactic the last time, we actually talked about Age of Wonders Planetfall on a podcast, and I said to Daz that I think once I started seeing Age of Wonders as a tactics game with a sort of 4X wrapper around it, I kind of started enjoying it more. And I think if you're like me and you had that problem with, you know, with the sort of strategic layer feeling a bit weak compared to the tactics side of it, then yeah, I think you probably feel the same way as me. Age of Wonders, if it was just a 4X game, would be D for me. It's good, but it's not that good. But the tactical combat is so good in this game that it brings it up to B for me. So yeah, that's Age of Wonders 3. I think that it's got great kind of it's got some good faction asymmetry in it. Especially on the tactical level. It's got loads of cool spells. There's some interesting victory conditions, like the Seals victory condition was quite unique in 4X, I think, at the time. Yeah, it does some cool stuff, but it has got some flaws. Some of the other stuff, the other problem, the other issue is Age of Wonders is really, really difficult. This is like on a difficulty level. This is like, especially for a beginner, this is an S tier game. Like it's so bad that the game Planetfall really encourages save scumming. Like, it's got save scumming built in as a game mechanic. That's how like hard the tactical combat is when you're first getting used to it, and it can be brutal for beginners. Like, you know, it wasn't until I watched some Daz Tactic tutorials on how to play it, and he was like, look, don't feel bad about save scumming in Age of Wonders because it's so hard. You know, even like veteran players still lose battles because it's difficult. So, you know, that can be a bit of an off-putting thing. I actually like that. I think if it wasn't for the challenge, I'd probably have it as a C tier game. Okay, Sid Meier's Civilization 4. Can you guess where this one's going to go? This is an S tier game, and you can't say that about any of the other games in the series, I don't think. I think maybe I enjoyed Civilization 2 and I enjoyed Civilization... In fact, I played all of them. I played Civ 1, 2, 3, 4. I've played 5 and I've got 6, but I just sit up. If it wasn't for the fact that Sean Bean was the narrator in Civ 6, I would never have even bought it. For Civ 5 didn't really do it for me either, but Civ 4 is... I mean, I think if you know about 4X games, you're going to know what Civ is. And historical 4Xs are a lot easier for people to generally pick up because the tech tree is kind of intuitively familiar. The game mechanics of Civilization is actually quite difficult. You know, it takes practice to get good at Civ. And I'm not a good player by any stretch of the imagination. I tend to play on Prince, I think. Or was it Monarch? I can't remember now. I think it might be Prince. And that's challenging for me, and I enjoy that. And I haven't played it very much recently because I've kind of gone off historical 4X games. But Civ, on its own, Civ 4 would be an A tier game if it wasn't for the fact that it was built by with modding in mind. And so I think it's built in Python, and it's relatively easy to mod, and that means that there's been some amazing mods for it. Most of which I haven't played, although I have played Fall from Heaven too, and I quite like that. But Civ 4 just on its own, just as a base game, is an A tier game without a doubt. It's, again, if we were doing a tier ranking of game AI, this would be like an A. The game AI in Civ is really, really good, but it's just the overall polish on this game. Everything about this game was really, really, really well done. The graphics are good, or they're still good now. It still holds up now. The Leonard Nimoy's narration is just excellent. He did an outstanding job. Soren Johnson is just a genius game designer, and he just made an incredibly good game here. So for Axis, really, they knocked the ball out of the park with Civ 4. It's the best of the series, hands down, no mistake. Okay, Conquest of Elysium 4. I want to put this as like for the enjoyment I get out of this game, it's an S tier game, right? But it's got its problems, and if there was an in between of B and C, I'd put it there. I think. I think, I don't know though, because a lot. Okay, let me just expand my thoughts a little bit so you understand why I'm thinking like this. I do take into account what other people think about these games when I'm kind of thinking about stuff like this. And Conquest of Elysium is one of these games that... Okay, so like my friend Lucid Tactics said this best recently when I was talking. We were talking about Conquest of Elysium 5, which has just been announced by Illwinter. And he was like, I like Conquest of Elysium, but I don't love it. And that seems to be... a lot of people say stuff like that. That seems to be like that's a fair slice of opinion from a very broad range of people from the community. I think a lot of people really, really like the game, but everybody's got a complaint about it, and they all seem to be different. Like, there doesn't seem to be that much common consensus on what it is with Conquest of Elysium 4 that is wrong with it. So I'm going to just go with what I think, okay? And I'm tempted to put it here. This is really difficult. I think I'm gonna have to leave it as a B, and I don't know, because I do think that I've been somewhat tainted by what other people say about it. And okay, so Conquest of Elysium 4 is a roguelike stroke 4X. It's very much based around procedurally generated content, much like a 4X games on roguelikes are. You pick a character at the start who then is able to generally recruit and create new units. very much like Dominions, you're able to build. You kind of like get each faction has its own mechanics. It's incredibly asymmetric. I think I'm tempted to put it in even into A, just because of the faction asymmetry in it. It's just like is so high. It's much higher than probably any of the other games on this list. Maybe it's certainly up there with Endless Legend for asymmetry. There's not a lot of player control in areas where some people would like control. I think that's probably my main critique with the game. But I also find it difficult to know whether that is a strength of the game or not. For example, with Dominions, the way that you set the combat up, you spend ages using your formations, setting all your mages to use certain spells, assigning items if you're if you've got a laboratory there. There's loads of stuff you have to do. Whereas in Conquest of Elysium 4, literally all you do is you just pick which units are going to be accompanying your character, and then you throw them into a battle. And you can also you can change magic items around, and that's it. And you can choose which spells that the AI will use, but the AI casts the spells randomly. So there's a heavy random element in Conquest of Elysium 4, and I think that I'd like just a little bit more control. If it had a little bit more control, I'd think that this game would be like an A tier game, definitely. But I think I'm going to leave it as a B. And yeah, it's just the sheer amount of content in the game is mind-boggling. And I just want to emphasize that with a bit of silence there. It's mind-boggling. Dominions 5 and Conquest of Elysium 4 individually have more content than the rest of the games put together. I'm not lying either. Like Dominions 5's got something like 1,000 different monsters, and there's I think there's nearly 1,000 spells. It's just magic items. There's just so much content in it. Conquest of Elysium 4 is pretty high. It's a game that it's a shame that they don't make more use of the planes of existence. So like you can go to different planes like Inferno, Hades, into Agartha, which is an underground world. There's all these sort of places that you can go, but there's not so much incentive to do so, and that kind of drags the game down a little bit for me. But it's very much one of the other issues that the game has is that the AI sometimes, especially on the lower difficulty settings, often gets killed by the wildlife, because the wildlife in Conquest of Elysium is really brutal, and that's one of the main complaints about the game that I think people have. I think that a lot of people don't like how difficult the neutral faction wildlife is. I like it. I think there is a little bit of babysitting required in your empire. So once you've kind of like taken once you've won half the game basically, and you're sort of summoning demons, and getting them very, very high tier units, and you've maybe got 5 or 6 very large armies, and you're bearing down on your enemy. Sometimes it's kind of frustrating to have a bear just turn up and just take some of your big cities away from you with it, because you've been too slack to leave a defending army. However, again, just like with Armageddon Empires, once you know some of these issues, you should know how to defeat them. But I think at least for early players, that beginner players, that can be a bit of a frustrating thing. So I want like the amount of fun that I get out of this game. This is like an A or an S tier game for me, because it's just so replayable. The factions are also different. I think I enjoy each faction so much that I've only ever played about a third of them. Maybe not even that. There's 21 factions if I remember right, and I've probably played about 7. Yeah, I've probably played about 7 factions properly. So, and they're all so different. It's like the Devara, the kind of dwarfs. The dwarven faction played completely differently to say the something like the witch or the druid. They're very kind of based around turtling. You can turtle kind of well with that faction, whereas other factions you have to be a bit more aggressive. Like it's just it's a great game. I'm not going to go on about it too much, because these are not game reviews. I just want to kind of explain it. This one's a funny one for me, and it's I kind of want to put it here because I love it so much, but I think if I'm going to do the game, if I'm going to be a genuine critic, I think I need to put it down here. Some people would probably even put it down here like that. Like I think hearing what Lucid was saying, I think he'd probably say this was a C or a D tier game, but I think it's a B, and it's just because I think it's just so good. Okay, next up we've got Deity Empires. I think Deity Empires is If it was better produced, I think it would be a C. I don't know, it's a hard one because I got this game in early access and it was pretty well, you know, it was really playable and it was a lot of fun. Deity Empires is a Master of Magic clone, basically. And if you made a Master of Magic game where you actually wanted to try to make everything bigger, more of it, you know, bigger and bigger. Problem is, bigger doesn't necessarily mean better. And well, you'll see where Master of Magic goes. But Deity Empires, I don't know. Like, I want to like this game, but I don't. And I think that the reason being is because the presentation in it is just so lackluster. Like, I don't mind games with basic graphics. Like Conquest of Elysium 4 has got, like, I really hate it, by the way, when people say Illwinter games have got bad graphics. They haven't. They are incredibly good, but they are just quite low resolution. So, I mean, the main reason for the people saying this, I think, is because of the randomly generated maps in Dominions 5 are a little bit ugly. But Conquest of Elysium 4 is actually quite a nice looking game if you don't mind basic looking games. And the artwork in it is actually very, very good considering the amount there is. Bear in mind, there's like 1,000 units, you know. And, you know, each of the units have got 2 frames of animation. But there's no... What's Deity Empires' excuse? Like, it's just so generic. And I just really... Like, this is a very personal thing. And I feel, you know, I don't mean to be unpleasant about it. But, like, it really puts me off. It's just like, who do you want to be? Generic orc, generic dark elf? Like, it's just... we just put up a... We're about to put up a review. Oh, sorry, not a review, but... one of the guys who used to write for eXplorminate, Troy, he's just written an article about Master of Magic, and he was talking about charm in Master of Magic, and his definition of what people mean by charm is very, very different to what I've been saying, and I've been using that word with my Master of Magic for a couple of years. So when I talk about charm in Master of Magic, well, I'm not. This is not, as Troy's kind of making out that it, you know, I think he's kind of mistaking it for nostalgia. And I don't have any nostalgic attachment to Master of Magic. I didn't play this game until about 3 or 4 years ago. So this is like a new game for me. I judge Master of Magic on its merits, not on the fact that I played it, you know, when I was a kid. And it's a very good game. But it's charming because the character animation and the graphics, at least not I'll talk more about Master of Magic in a minute, but how it relates to Deity Empires is basically this is full. It's got really, really beautiful animations and characters are really full of life and vibrant. This is just, I don't like it. It's just like, I wish that the developers had just spent a little bit of time putting a little bit more effort into the presentation of Deity Empires, because it looks bad and it's just really, really low effort. Like, this game is crying out for mods. It's got an incredibly detailed civic system that's probably rivaled only by Iodogenesis. So that means that in your cities you can build like 100 buildings or 100, I don't know, there's like a ridiculous amount. The tactical battles in it are actually quite good. I like the tactical battles in Deity Empires. It's got a dungeon exploration mechanic where you go down and, like you know, like a roguelike, you kind of go down in there and explore. That's all right, but it's just very time consuming. This is very much a sandbox game at the moment, and it needs more direction. If they tightened this game up and gave it better presentation, this would be an A-tier game. But it's not, and it's at the moment it's too loose, it's too big, too unwieldy. It really requires the player to put in a lot of effort to learn how to put the game together so that they can enjoy it. And honestly, the start of it's just so slow that you're playing for 2 or 3 hours before you get to anything fun. And I just that at the same time, if you can manage all of that, it is quite good. So I'm going to put it in C. I'm kind of, I know it sounds like I've shit on it a bit, and I don't really mean to. I just think that it's just a game that could be better. Basically, it's a game that's got a lot of potential, and I think the developers they've really made it their focus to make a big customizable game. It's just at the expense of making it fun and playable. But that's just my opinion. There are a lot of people who really like Daz Tactic loves this game. Daz loves this game, and there are a few people who really love this game. But I don't know. I think I'm even going to put it into D. I think it's just got too many problems with it for me to really want to play it. Okay. Okay, next up we've got Distant Worlds Universe. Distant Worlds Universe is an S tier game for me. Now, I think that other people might query that and they might put it down here. But for me, this is an S tier game, and for very much the same reasons as Civilization. For me, it's very, very difficult to find flaw with Distant Worlds. It's an incredibly expansive big game in the same way that Deity Empires tries to be, but it succeeds because it's much tighter in its game design. It's got incredible customization, so you can play it in very, very large galaxies and it can be fun. You can play it in very small galaxies and it can be fun. Very much like another game that we're going to discuss soon, which is Imperiums. It's one of the only games that really makes use of resources properly, and it has a resource-based economy. So whilst the planet management side of it is quite simplistic, that's to the game's benefit. So, I mean, I like it in Galciv, and Galciv really leans into planetary management very heavily. But most games I find it dreadfully boring. Like, I just realised I'd forgotten to put Master of Orion 2 on here, and I probably should have done, but Master of Orion 2 had really, really boring. Is an example of a good 4X game with really, really bad planetary management. That's just really boring. And Distant Worlds solves that by kind of mostly making it redundant. You don't really need to do it. There's only really a few buildings that you need to make. So that's good. Population management is very, very easy. It's got different factions with different victory conditions. That is that's what brings this game into an S tier from an A. The fact that all the factions play quite differently. They're relatively asymmetric, not in the same way as Conquest of Elysium 4 or say Endless Legend, but they are, it's got a really, really detailed ship design system. My one gripe about the game is that if you're playing it with the research speed, not on the slower version, you often find you're spending a lot of time in the ship designer. Fortunately for me, it's a lot of fun. Other people do not like it. I see a lot of criticism about the UI in Distant Worlds. I don't understand that criticism at all. I don't get it. I don't think it's. I just don't understand it. It's like people go, "Oh, the font's ugly." Like, is it? I don't think so. Oh, it's all crammed into one space. It's like, yeah, but that's better than menu diving. Like, I don't want to be hitting 50 buttons just to get to where I'm going. Like, Distant Worlds Universe is pretty good. It's not perfect. No game is, and it's not got a perfect UI, but it's not a bad UI. I don't know. I don't really get it. There's a lot of windows, and it, like, if I was going to rank it as its UI on a tier list, it'd be a B, right? Because it's not brilliant, but it's not bad. And at least it's not that same boring one that they use in Endless Space and Endless Legend. Like Endless Space and Endless Legend seems to have become the UI template for all of the rest of these games for some reason. And it's just, I don't know. I just don't, it's all right. It's just boring. Whereas Distant Worlds, I like it. I feel like I'm playing a complex game. And I can't really explain it any other way than that. What else is good about this game? The AI is pretty good. It's not perfect, but it's not bad. It's very moddable, so there's tons of mods you can choose. If for some reason you're bored of the base game, and Jesus, if you are, you must have played it a whole lot more than me. Then there's loads of mods that you can add. I know there's a bacon mod that people regularly play with. I don't bother with it. I don't need it. I like the base game. The base game's fun enough for me. The tech tree is absolutely enormous. It's got 3 tech trees, which I really like. Yeah, like Distant Worlds is just a great game, man. It's one of those games that you can make it so that, like Imperiums, you can kind of set the resources so they're scarce, and then really have wars that are mostly fought over resources. Or you can try and set up a big trading kind of economy. It's got the amazing public sector, so the private economy builds ships and mines and mining stations and just does its own thing, and you've just got to kind of look after them and protect them, and it's just so satisfying seeing it all go around. It's got amazing automation features if that's your thing, or you can turn all the automation off. Yeah, Distant Worlds Universe is an S tier game, there's no doubt about it. It's got its problems, but it's for me, this is one of the best 4X games ever made. I think it might be I don't know. It's hard to say the best. I think it's the best space 4X game. Maybe apart from Remnants of the Precursors, but we'll see. Dominions. Dominions, if we were talking about single player games, I'd say it would be a C tier or maybe even a D. You've got so many tools in this game, and the AI is actually like, I've heard people say that the AI in Dominions is bad. That's absolute nonsense. It's not bad at all. It's actually quite good. It's quite good at raiding. It's quite good at meeting your armies in the field. It knows how to crack forts. But I think the where people say that Dominions is the AI is bad comes from is because they've been playing it multiplayer, where you've got people, the sort of people who play Dominions basically get really into it. And with the game as complicated as Dominions, and this, by the way, is the most complicated game on this list, probably, maybe apart from Shadow Empire. I think these two are on a kind of level for being of complexity. In fact, I'd argue that Shadow Empire is more complex with its mechanics, but Dominions is complex because of the sheer range of choices that you've got. But that is why the AI cannot be expected to play a game as complex as Dominions in the same way that a player would. So no, I refute the claim that Dominions has got bad AI. It hasn't. It's got good AI. In fact, the battle AI in Dominions is better than a lot of the 4X games on this list. Like if you set the AI, if you play a single player game of Dominions and you set the AI to like mighty or something, and you have like 4 or 5 factions, you're going to lose unless you're very, very good. And that's, unless you're like somebody who wins multiplayer games. It's really, really good, but it doesn't play in a very fun way because it just basically plays to crush you. So, yeah, it's not the best single player game. I like it, by the way. I played single player Dominions all the time because I'm one of these weird people who doesn't really mind its flaws. But I think a lot of people like I think it would be a D or a C tier game. However, it's mostly a multiplayer game, and because of how good this is, I'm going to put it in as an S tier game. And it's mostly on the strengths of its multiplayer. But Dominions is it's a fantasy 4X game. It's kind of a 4X like game. It's quite different to any of the other games. I've heard people compare it to Heroes, which is a really weird comparison until you've played Dominions a lot, and then you'll start seeing some similarities. They both have a similar sort of, they've both got a huge amount of faction. Well, they've both got a lot of factions and, a lot of different potential spell builds and this kind of thing. But Dominions is 20 times more complex than Heroes, 30 times, maybe even 40. It's like ridiculous. It's the most complex fantasy 4X game, without a doubt. It's thousands of units. It's got, I think it's like 60 factions to choose from. 3 different ages. It's got an incredible lore behind it. The guys who have written it are just they've filled it they've made this game with love, and it's an old game, and it's been they've been working on this since the late 90s. It's it's the 5th iteration of this game. It's a venerable series now, and it shows. It's just incredible. I can't you need to go and watch someone play it really to understand why Dominions is so good, and it is mostly good as a multiplayer game. It's just, it's an incredibly good game, and it's an S tier game. It has, like, as a single player game, like I say, it's kind of like down here probably because it's got some serious flaws. The main one being is there's no diplomacy. Like if you want to make Dominions 5 a good single player game, make it so that there's diplomacy in it, basic diplomacy. So you're not always at war with everybody. As soon as they declare war, that's it. If there was some way of making it so that the AI kind of understood non-aggression pacts, then it would be, probably be a B or an A, maybe a B. But as it is, single player, it's down here. Multiplayer, it's S tier. Overall, S tier. There's nothing like it. There's absolutely nothing like it. It's got the most satisfying combat system in any 4X game, bar nothing. Okay, next. Wow, 50 minutes and I've not even done half of them. I might have to split this video up. Iodogenesis. This is a C tier, I think. Iodor's really, really fun, and as a 4X game, it's kind of like it's like a weird mix between something like Heroes of Might and Magic. Dominions kind of, and you know, like a Master of Magic sort of game. It's got some interesting stuff. It's very much it's a very fun player versus environment game, because the map that you've got, it's split into locations, and you search the locations, but you search them for magic sites and for enemies and that kind of thing. But if you search them, you know, you can search them over and over again, and there's a percentage meter that goes up, you know, and you can search some of these sites like 20, 30 times and find different things. So it's like, it's quite fun. It's got a great combat system. The tactical combat in Eodor is really good. Like if we were doing a tier list of 4X game combat systems, Eodor's up here, man. It's like really good. I've picked Iodogenesis basically because it's the one that I've played the most. I've also played Imperiums. Imperiums has got some really serious bugs in it, and you know they often don't manifest until you like right at the end of the game. It's so annoying. Like it's actually a bit of a meme, and the Eodor developer they put in a little character who comes up in the tutorial of the game, and he goes, "Hey," it's like this knight or something, and he goes, "Hey guys, how's it going? Kind of noticed that if you notice there's any bugs in the game that you can't quite like get around, well, yeah, we've tried to fix them, but we can't. And so if you want to get your money back, we're happy to give you it back." And I was like, that's such a novel way of dealing with the problem. It's like, you can't fix the bugs, so just put a little comedy character in who offers your money back. So yeah, like Eodor's got problems. The AI players don't. It's when you get to the point of the game where you start bumping up against the AI players, the game starts being less fun, and that's why it's a C tier game. Like I think Eodor could be really good. It could be like up here, but it needs work. I've got to be honest, I've not played it quite enough to really pinpoint what it is that doesn't quite work about it. But Eodor, it's when you build up your forces, you have to really look after them. If you lose any forces in it, kind of like in Dominions as well, you know, your units are expendable, but if you lose them at a critical moment, you can lose the game, and it's quite hard to get hold of some of the higher tier units because you have to build your city in a very specific way, and often in doing that you lock yourself off from some of the other units. So it's very replayable in that respect, but it's also quite hard. It's quite a hard game, Eodor, I think. So yes, Eodor's a C. Right, we're on to these two, and I struggle. I struggle with the endless games. What is it? I'm going to kind of like talk about them together a little bit, because my problems with the games and the strengths are basically the same. So, Endless Legend I'm going to put here, and Endless Space I'm going to put here. Endless Legend I think is a good game. Endless Legend I think is a good game. The problem is I just can't get into it, and I've tried and tried. I find that I don't really like the tactical combat in it, even though it's actually quite original and interesting. And by the way, top marks to Amplitude for trying something different, and give them credit for that. I think a lot of people found it a little bit hands-off, which is why they didn't like it. I just find it too slow. The quest system in it's okay, but it's not as good as Fallen Enchantress. The hero system is okay, but it's not as good as Fallen Enchantress. So this is a common theme you'll find with me when I talk about Endless Legend. I just prefer Fallen Enchantress. I think it's a better game. So I think Endless Legend it's an S tier game when it comes to faction asymmetry. They've really gone all out in making them play differently. The problem is they play so differently that it kind of shoehorns you into a certain style of play. And I'm not as enamored about that kind of asymmetry as Rob is, for example. Like this, Rob's like this. If there's an S plus tier, this would be up there for Rob. I think he loves this game. I don't love it, but I recognise that it's a good game. That's basically the best thing I can say about it. Endless Space. Again, with both of these games, right? I think that the presentation is top notch. By the way, they're beautiful. The graphics, the sound, the music. The UIs are very good. They're very slick, at least. I think they're a bit. Everyone's like kind of copied them. They're a bit generic for me, but you know, it's just that generic 4X UI that everybody's copied from Endless Legend now. But yeah, they're good games. I just don't get on with them, and I definitely don't get on with Endless Space too. I don't know why. I don't like the node-based system. The whole game feels on rails. It kind of like plays like, I don't know. It's like you click on a system, then you send your scouts, so they automatically go there, and then you click on a button, and it automatically it just sends these probes out, tells you what's on there, and then there's some boring city management stuff, and the combat. I don't know. I'm one of the only people who doesn't mind the combat in Endless Legend and Endless Space 2. Actually, I think that the game. I think tactical combat in Endless Space 2 would make it even worse. So, yeah, I don't like this game, and I don't know. I can't get into it. I'm trying. I keep trying to play it, and I love all the factions in it. And same with Endless Legends. I love all the factions. They're so thematic and interesting. Just, I don't know. The games just leave me cold. Fallen Enchantress, on the other hand, is a B tier game. Even though I ranked this as what, you know, I voted this one as one of the best 4X games of all time, and that was largely because it's a very, very well executed fantasy 4X, probably far beyond any of the others on the list. The problem is it's got some fatal bugs and problems, and they've never. Rob and I interviewed Brad Wardell the other day, and Brad said to me, he goes, I think he was exaggerating a bit, but he said, there is not a day that goes by that I don't think about Elemental. You know, and this is like the sequel to Elemental. And he was, you know, you can tell that they really, really struggled with Elemental, the Elemental series, and they did their best with it. And it's been nothing but problems for them, like severe problems. And any other company, it would have bankrupted them. But they've persevered, and they still release updates for it even to this day. It's got one of the best diplomacy systems in a 4X. I think the currency-based diplomacy system is really, really clever, and it works. It's easy to understand. You kind of know why it is that people are asking for things from you. The tech tree is simple, and you can plot your trajectory through it, and it drastically changes the way that the game plays. The factions are all pretty different. There's a couple of there's one broken faction in it that just doesn't work. The AI can't use it. Otherwise, this game would be an S tier. It's just got stuff in it that doesn't work, and every now and again the AI just doesn't seem to play very well. So, like, you can get halfway through a game and then realize the AI is just not expanded. And I just think even the balancing changes that they've made in the last year or two with Fallen Enchantress to try to make the AI play better haven't really worked. But when it's good, this game is very, very good. I'm going to put it in B tier because I just think that when it works, it's great. It is one of the best fantasy 4X games. It's got excellent tactical combat as well, like really, really good. I like it better than the Age of Wonders games because it's just faster to play, and that was by design. Okay, Galciv 3 is another Stardock game. I think this is the best of the series that I've played. I've not really played Galciv 2 a huge amount. I didn't even play Galciv 1 that much. You know, the Windows version that came out in 2002 or whatever it was. But Galciv 3, Galciv 3 I think is... I'm going to put it in an A tier game, and I'll tell you why, right? I think on release it would have been a C. It was pretty lackluster and people didn't like it. And Stardock stepped up, owned their problem, owned the issue, and just like before Enchantress, they started giving stuff away for free for it to make it better. So, it's got one of the best AIs in 4X. Like, again, it's got S tier AI. This has, or maybe be A tier. The AI in this game is superb. It's quite long, and it can be because you've got this kind of move anywhere thing. It's totally the opposite of Endless Space. Where did Endless Space go? It's totally the opposite of Endless Space. Oh, we seem to have lost a few. Endless Space, because it's not on nodes. You can kind of go anywhere. It's got a really, really interesting planet management system where you have to kind of like use adjacency bonuses to min-max. If you like that sort of thing, then Galciv's going to be your bag. It's got a huge tech tree. The factions are all quite cool. I've heard some complaints that people think the factions are a bit boring. Like Rob thinks the factions are a bit boring. He doesn't like humanoid aliens. I don't care about that. I think the I think that like the Drengin, for example, the Drengin, whatever you say, they're like really thematic and kind of like menacing. The humour can be a bit hit and miss, just like in Fallen Enchantress. I like the humour in Fallen Enchantress. I think it's just right, whereas I think some people don't like it. And the same with Galciv. It's got a bit of humour in there that probably is kind of out of place sometimes. The Star Control factions are a bit janky, but they're interesting. Yeah, this is a hardcore 4X game. This is for 4X enthusiasts only. I think if you're the sort of person who really likes min-maxing, you like games with strong AI, you like games where you can play huge maps with loads and loads of different factions, providing you've got a really powerful computer, you can play very big maps. It's an absolutely excellent game. It's an absolutely excellent game, but it's got a few problems, and I think one of the main problems with Galciv 3 is, I don't know, I just don't often, once I've got to a certain part of the game, I don't always finish it. And that's kind of common with 4X games, right? I mean, that happens with Dominions, it happens with Distant Worlds occasionally. Yeah, but Galciv, it seems to be a bit more of a problem. But yeah, I like this game. I think some of the feedback from the combat could be better. I think that I'd like it to lean more heavily into, if they're going to do this kind of setup and watch, like Dominions, like this kind of combat system, which they have. I think that it needs to be a bit more detailed. I find the ship design very difficult to use and not very fun. That's the other thing that I don't like about it. I'm kind of half tempted to put Galciv 3 down here, actually. It's somewhere between A and B, but I will overfavor games that have got strong AI, like that have got very good AI, and these two games have got very good AI. In fact, all of these, I mean, apart from Dominions 5, all of these games have got decent AI, I'd say. But Galciv is probably the strongest of the lot, maybe apart from AI War. But that's an asymmetric game, whereas this is a good AI that plays with the same rules as the pretty much the same rules as the player. So it's pretty good. Speaking about great AI, Gladius, A or S, I don't know. I think for the kind of game that Gladius is trying to be, I think it's an S tier game. I think if you were looking at it as strictly a 4X, then it's going to be, well, I mean, some people would say it's not even a 4X, but it is. It doesn't have some of the stuff in it that some purists like for example, it's got no diplomacy in it because it's a Warhammer game. Like, why would you have Warhammer in? Why would you have diplomacy in Warhammer 40k? So, well, I suppose there might be some factions that might work together, like the Space Marines and the Imperium, but and the Imperial Guard or whatever they're called now, Astra Militarum. But yeah, I think that in shedding diplomacy, it's made it a better game. It's a one tile per, one unit per tile system, like Civ 5, except it does it well. Very much like Old World. It's got an excellent combat system. It's almost like halfway between a tactics game, like Wesnoth, like Battle for Wesnoth kind of game, as it is a 4X, but it's got strong faction asymmetry. The AI is excellent. It's like got A tier AI, like Galciv 3, maybe even S tier. It's got incredibly good AI. The computer will retreat if it's losing, only to attack you where you're weak. It's a great game. I love Gladius. It's great. I think the only thing that stopped it, probably, I don't know, like, I don't know where to put it. Like, I love the game. I think it's brilliant, and I think that because it's stripped down certain areas of the 4X kind of thing, it's a better game for it. So I think for the kind of game that it's trying to be, added to the fact that it's got excellent tactical combat, added to the fact that it's got excellent presentation, the graphics are really good, it's easy to play, it's quite easy to learn, it's difficult, like the AI is difficult. Yeah, it's an S tier game for me, and I think that, I mean, it won Game of the Year for eXplorminate back in 2019, I think, or was it 20? I forget now. I think it might have been 2019, but and it absolutely deserves it. It's a superb game. Okay. Next up is Imperiums Greek Wars. Imperiums is an A tier game, and people are going to be going, "What? Imperium? What's this game?" This is the best game that nobody's ever played. including me. I haven't played it a huge amount, and the main reason being is because when it came out, there was a load of other stuff that hit my desk all at the same time, and I gave it about 20 hours or so, and I realised that this has got something special. It's like it's like the historical 4X version of Distant Worlds in that it's got a resource-based economy. It's got a very complex diplomacy system. The resource system is you know, if you've not got wood, you can't build units. Like if you've not got metal, you can't build any units that require metal. So you have to trade for it if you've not got it naturally, or you've got to declare war and get it. This is great. Honestly, this is a great game. Why isn't it an S tier game? It's not because it's got bad graphics. The graphics are... It's not bad graphics, they're just not. And like, you know me, I like stuff with simplistic graphics like Dominions 5. I mean, but again, I want to reiterate the quality of the graphics in the Illwinter games is very, very high for the style that they've chosen. Pavel, who is the developer, he's a really nice guy, by the way. We interviewed him, and he's well aware that the graphics aren't perfect. He's done his best to kind of put a 2D mode into it as well, like a cloth map mode. I wasn't that keen, but he's done his best with it, and I think he's taken on board that the graphics are the big barrier to entry for the game. It's not that the graphics are bad necessarily; they just clash. There's something about them don't quite work for me. I think that he needs to get someone who's really good at UI and graphics to really look at it. But the UI, by the way, of Imperiums is good, and I like the presentation of the UI. Like, it's for once, it's not one of these, you know, carbon copies from the Endless games. It's really it's a nice looking UI. It's quite functional. The AI in this game is good. It's got supply mechanics. The combat mechanics in Imperiums are really it's difficult. Like, you know, it's not like Civ. It looks like Civ, but it isn't, right? So, you know, sometimes you'll lose a battle and you're like, why did I lose that? Like, I've got more men than him. And then it's like, well, for a start, your morale's low. You've lost battles against that faction before, so your specific faction-based morale is low. Like this, honestly, this game is so complex. It looks so much. It's so much bigger than it looks. So I think I'm going to have to play this on this channel sometime, because I've been promising Pavel I'm going to do... Well, I've not promised him, but I kind of said to Pavel, look, I think I'm going to play this on the channel sometime. One, because it'll make me learn it better, and two, because I think that it's a game that really deserves some more exposure. And I just think that... I think this one sold better than Aggressors, Ancient Rome, but I think this is a much better game. So yeah, I like Imperiums, and it's an A-tier game, without a doubt. Alright. Interstellar Space Genesis. Praxis Games. I think this is a B tier game. I think it's getting better all the time as well. And so this is a Master of Orion 2 like game. It's taken Master of Orion 2 and stripped out all the stuff that made it boring, and fleshed out the areas that Master of Orion 2 added from Master of Orion 1 and Master of Magic, but makes them better. So it's got a cool character-based system. So you've got heroes. It's got really good faction planetary management. It's kind of like halfway between the one in Master of Orion 2 and Master of Orion 1. So it's kind of got sliders, but it's also got... You can also build buildings in it. The pacing of the game is a lot better than it was on release. On release, I'd have said it was probably a C or a D tier game, but now it's a B or an A. I think it's going to be a B. And what are the problems with this game then? I don't like the tactical combat as much as I should. I can't really put my finger on it at the moment. What the problem is? I think that it's just... I don't know. This game, I should like it more than I do, and I don't know why. And it's, I don't know what the issue is with it necessarily. But it just doesn't grab me. Like I've got quite a lot of hours in it, but I've rarely finished a game, and I've not come back to it for a while. Even though it's had some interesting updates, and the DLC actually added some cool factions and stuff. I think if you like Master of Orion 2, and you want to play a game that's better than Master of Orion 2, because I think this is better than Master of Orion 2 now. I think this is a better game than Mu 2. But I don't rate Mu 2 as highly as some people, so Yeah, I think it's B. I've enjoyed my time with it. I need to go back and play it really, and I honestly think that I feel a little bit bad even rating this one because there's part of me that thinks I've not played it enough to give it a fair shake. I don't like the tech tree in it. Yeah, it kind of feels a bit generic in some ways. I'm going to leave it as a B or a C. I think I might even put it as a C purely because I just haven't enjoyed it like I've. Mind you, I think I like it better than Endless Legend. Yeah, I'm going to put it as a B. I think it's a good game. I don't like it as much as I could do. I don't think, but I struggle to find out. Like with Endless Legend, I kind of struggle to put my finger on what it is that I don't like about it. It just doesn't quite grab me. Okay, Master of Magic. And when we're talking about Master of Magic, I'm going to talk about Caster of Magic, okay? Because Master of Magic Vanilla is a D tier game. It's a very, very expansive, sandboxy game that requires a lot of pre-learning in order to understand and to be able to play properly. It's broken as all hell. There's just stuff in it that's so unbalanced that it's just like I don't mind balancing. I don't mind unbalancing single player games, but the AI is bad in the original Master of Magic. It's just yeah, even with the bug patches and the insecticide patch or whatever it's called, even the very latest patch that Sorcery made for vanilla Master of Magic, it's still, I'd say it's a C tier game, but Caster of Magic is an A tier game. I'm not going to go into all the details of what Caster of Magic is. It's just Sorcery is a modder. He's been working on it for years. He's fixed all the bugs. He's made all the most broken. He's removed all the most broken stuff and switched it for thematically, stuff that's thematic to the game. It doesn't feel like a different game, even though it is. Because Caster of Magic is significantly different to Master of Magic. It plays significantly different. It's a tighter game. It's a very, very difficult game. The reason why I'm going to put it as an A tier game and not an S is because there's a couple of reasons. I mean, it could even be a B, but there's a couple of reasons, I guess. The main flaw with Master of Magic is I'm not in love with the building system anymore. It's old and it's a bit out of date. So, it was a building system that they imported into Master of Orion 2, and it worked in Master of Magic, but it didn't work so well in Master of Orion 2. But even in Master of Magic, even in Caster of Magic, it feels a little bit like you've just got to build everything everywhere after a point. Caster of Magic reduces that somewhat by altering some of the way that some of the buildings work and adding some new ones. So it's a lot better. But yeah, it's not an S tier game, and the reason being is difficulty. You really, really need to know the game in order to be able to play it, which is a huge barrier for entry for a lot of it. Like if you're a new player, you might put it on normal and think, oh, I play 4X games on normal, no sweat. And then the AI will roll you after 30 turns, and you're just like, okay, that's too hard. So you put it down to easy and you try it again, and then the AI rolls you again, and it's just like, all right, this game's really hard. So it shouldn't roll you on easy, but it will definitely roll you on normal, and it can be hard on easy if you don't know what you're doing. I was playing a Caster of Magic Let's Play on eXplorminate, and I got the AI just rocked up with a massive stack of units just from out of nowhere. It came like I wasn't scouting well enough, and it just came out of nowhere, and it destroyed one of my main cities, and that was it. It was like, I don't think I can complete that game now. I'm probably going to lose. It's just, so it's one of those that it's brutal. It's really unforgiving. But the sheer range of builds that you can go with, the range of magicians, and that charm, that magic word I was talking about, that charm, which Troy talked about, and I think we're probably talking about different things, but Master of Magic has got a wonderful charm. It's got very, very old graphics on the campaign map, but the battle map graphics aren't bad, and the character design is really wonderful. I love all the characters in it. They're just so thematic and fun. They're a little bit kind of old and stereotypical now, but I don't care. I love that stuff. It's just really, really fun. It's lovely animations in it. There's loads of units. There's some, you can do some mad stuff in it, like, the famous one is flying invisible warships. So You got warships that can only sail on the sea, but you make them fly and then you make them invisible, so they can't be attacked by anything on the ground, and also nothing can see them. So yeah, that like stuff like that, you can make some really broken stuff in Master Magic, and even in Caster Magic you can create some very, very strong builds. So yeah, A tier, one of the best it's still probably the best Fantasy 4X game out, I'd say. Okay, this video is getting really long, and I'm starting to give myself both a sore throat and a blocked up nose from talking so much. So I'm going to try to be a little bit quicker. But I've got a lot to say about 4X games, as you can tell. Pax Nova. D tier. Why is Pax Nova a D tier game? Because it tries to be games that it can't be. So it's got that kind of like, basically Pax Nova is a, oh wow, I've realised I've missed Alpha Centauri off this list. What an idiot. Alpha Centauri is an S tier game, by the way. So we haven't put it on here, and I've also missed out Alliance of the Sacred Suns, which is a D tier game, I'd say. Even though it's a good game, it's still a D tier game because it's so broken. But Pax Nova, kind of halfway between, you know, Alliance of the Sacred Suns. Sorry, not Emperor of the Fading Suns. Sorry, Emperor of the Fading Suns. So it's kind of like, you know, you can go off planet. So once you've conquered the planet, you can then go off planet, conquer new planets. It's kind of, it's a good game. It's not a bad game. I don't agree that it's a bad game. There are no bad games, by the way, on this list, as I said before. They're all these games are all good in some way. I just think that Pax Nova is unfinished, and the rate at which the developers building it is really too slow. But you know, that's up to, you know, I'm not going to, you know, that's not a big problem. It's just, it just feels a little bit generic. And I think it could be a good game like this. I think if it all worked in the way that the developer intended it, it would probably be a C tier game, I'd say. The combat in it is okay. Rob doesn't like it, but I don't mind. The factions are kind of interesting. You know, the faction design is quite cool, but it feels very generic. It's like they took Civilization Beyond Earth. Well, that's another game that I forgot to put on here, but it's like they took that as their inspiration almost. I just think that it's a bit watered down and lackluster. Yeah, I think it's down here. It's not a bad game though. Like if you pick it up on a sale and play it because it's cool. Age of Wonders Planetfall. B tier. B tier. And it hurts me to do that because I like it. I really like it. Just like Age of Wonders 3. The reason why Age of Wonders, like, and Daz will kill me, like, because this is his favourite game. But the reason why Age of Wonders Planetfall is a B tier game for me is because the 4X elements in it aren't strong enough to really make it that, you know, to catapult it into S or A tier. However, the tactical combat in it is excellent. It's really, if you like tactical combat in 4X, it's got one of the best systems in the game, in the genre. So that's what stops it from being like C. But I struggle to finish games of Age of Wonders Planetfall for some reason. I think that the more you play it, the better it gets though. Yeah, I kind of want to, again, it's another one that is, if there was a halfway line between A and B, I'd put it there. Like, I kind of want to put it in A, but the fact is that I just, when the chips are down, I don't play Age of Wonders Planetfall as much as I play some of the other games, and that's really what is making me put it into a B tier. I find that after I've played it for an hour and I've done like, you know, 3 20-minute tactical combat things, my appetite for the rest of the game is diminished. And I didn't do any Total War games because I don't really consider them 4X games, but the Total War series would all be guilty of that same problem. The other thing, of course, is that it leans so heavily into save scumming because, you know, it allows you to replay battles that I feel compelled to keep replaying them until I get the best result, and I just don't think that's a good game design. Again, Daz Tactic loves it. He thinks that's great. I think it's great as well. The problem is that I don't, you know, the facts are that I can't stick at the game for some reason. It's got a cool tech tree. The modding system for your units is really interesting. There's loads of different units. Like it's got a lot of content, like more than a lot of these other games. You know, less than Dominions of Conquest of Elysium 4, but it's got a hell of a lot of content in it. The factions are all play quite differently, at least on the tactical battles. The diplomacy system's quite fun. It's a good game. It's a very, very good game. I just can't. I struggle to put it any higher than a B. I'm actually I'm doing a re-examination of this game for eXplorminate soon, and I might feel differently about it when I've played it even more. But I've got nearly 100 hours in this game now, and it still just hasn't quite grabbed me. But 100 hours, I played it for 100 hours, so I can't say that it's a bad game, because it's not. It's great. Space Empires 4. This is going to annoy a lot of people, but I think that's a D tier game. Yeah, I know it's the turn-based Distant Worlds universe, and you can do all sorts of cool stuff in it that you can't do in all these other games. Yeah, but it's got shit AI. Sorry. A game with that bad AI is just not a game. It's just... Every time I try to play it, I just... like, what's the AI doing? Oh, nothing. Okay. Like, why? I feel like I'm playing, when you were a kid and you finally were able to play both sides of a multiplayer game. So you just try to build all the best units and crush the enemy, and then that sinking feeling when you realise that actually cheating's no fun. Well, that every time I play Space Empires 4, that's what happens. It's a real shame. I want Ecolis to hurry up and finish Free, the free kind of unofficial remake of Space Empires 4. I don't think he's going to do it, but if he does, I'd love that, because man, that game needs AI. It needs to be able to. It's too unwieldy for the AI to be able to play. It's not on here, but Alliance of the Emperor of the Fading Suns. If I had that on there here, that would also be a D tier game. And just to reiterate, these D tier games are good games, right? They're just not. They've just got fatal problems. So Deity Empires' fatal problem is that it's too big for its own good. That's exactly the same problem with. But at least it works. So maybe Deity Empires would probably be a C. Whereas Emperor of the Fading Suns was so big and so unwieldy that it's very difficult to even finish a game. But the game mechanics are fun, and it had a lot of unique stuff in it, which would probably give it a D tier rating for me. Like Endless Space 2 is beautifully presented, and I just don't think it's a good game. But it deserves to be on here. Well, it is a good game, but it's just not for me. Like Pax Nova's fun, but it's not a great game. Space Empires 4, if it had good AI, it would be probably be a B or an A tier game for me, but it's not. It's a D tier game because it's got bad AI. So yeah, fix the AI, and they never will, because it's an ancient game now. It's also just, I don't know. Like I've got a higher threshold for bad graphics and kind of like rough UIs than most people, but I think that the game scores lowly on effort, graphics, and other stuff. I just think it's a bit, yeah. But you can have some fun with it if you're not expecting to be challenged, which is like, why are you playing a game? I don't know. That's not why I play games. Shadow Empire. Now everybody's going to think this is like immediately an S tier for me, because I love it so much. So full disclosure, I've been involved with Shadow Empire a little bit more than most people, because I did a little bit of sound editing work for Vic, so my name is actually on the credits, and it's very they shouldn't be. Like, Vic was he did me a real kind favour, really putting my name on the credits, because I really didn't do a lot. I was literally just adding some radio effects to the female voices in the game and cleaning some of them up, because some of them were pretty bad quality. And so yeah, so full disclosure, my name is on the credits of Shadow Empire. However, I had nothing to do with 99.999% of the game. In fact, I didn't even play it until about 2 months before it was released. So yeah, just so I just wanted to get that out of the way, in case people didn't already know that. Because yeah, so my name is on the credits, but I don't have a horse in the race with regards to Shadow Empire where it is, but it is my favourite game at the moment, and I think it's probably the best strategy game I've played in a long, long time. Is it an S tier game though? I don't know. Shadow Empire is a flawed game. It's got flaws, and part of me wants to put it in. Like, has it got more flaws than Dominions? Yes. Has it got more flaws than Gladius? Yes. Has it got more flaws than Distant Worlds? Well, I think some people would say they're both on the same kind of level. Has it got more flaws than Civ? Yes. Is it a better game than all of them if it didn't have flaws? Yes, I'd say. I think if Shadow Empire didn't have the performance issues that it's got at the moment, because it's got some really bad performance issues if you play a game on a large map. Particularly in the Vic's saying that he's going to try and fix this, but there's a current issue in my. So I'm 90 episodes. For those of you who don't know, I'm sure you do. I'm 90 episodes into a Let's Play series of Shadow Empire, so it's a long game. Like, I've probably put about 70 or 80 hours into that game. It's entertained me for 70 or 80 hours just in one game, and it's not ended yet. And am I bored of it? Nope. This is it's the best. It's the best strategy game I've played, and I'd rank it higher than Dominions with how complex it is. I say it's probably a more complex game than Dominions, although playing it is less complex than Dominions. And what I mean by that is that Shadow Empire's got more mechanics, and more of them are a bit more obscure. Like, everything in Dominions is very well for the most part is very well explained in the manual, whereas Shadow Empire still has some grey areas. That's part of its mystery, though, and I think part of the mystery is part of what it makes it exciting for me, because it's difficult to min-max this game. Like, it's difficult to min-max Dominions as well, but it's really difficult to min-max Shadow Empire. There's just too many variables, and when you've got a game with that many variables, that's cool, eh? Like, you're never going to be able to really, like, I don't know. I think that we're to steal something that Lucid Tactics was saying about Dominions. He said that Dominions, the game meta, people still haven't quite figured it out, and that's an old game now. Well, not old, but it's 4 years old or 5 years old. Shadow Empire is in the same state, I'd say. I don't think that players have really, at least in single player even, have really figured out the meta of the game yet. So there are people who crop up from time to time and go, oh, Shadow Empire, here's the best way to play it. And then you say to them, hey, have you tried it on a different planet type? And then, no, it turns out they haven't. So it's an incredibly replayable game. I'm not going to review it here. If you want to review, go to eXplorminate and read my 14,000 word preview that I did for it, because it goes into quite a lot of detail, as you might expect. I like to think it's quite a fun article as well. Well, not fun, but I wrote it to be readable because it was so big. I had to do something with it, but so I've tried to make an effort to make it kind of fun to read. But it's post-apocalyptic 4X. It's as much a kind of war game as it is a 4X game, but it's very definitely a 4X game. It's got pretty good AI. It's a huge scope. There's so much stuff you can do in it. You can build your empire in different ways. The civic management system in it's excellent. It's got the most genius, unique way of automating stuff without feeling like it's automated. So you can kind of ignore parts of the game that you don't want to focus on, and the game will play it for you. But if you want to get the most out of it, you can kind of play with it and do that. So, for example, if you don't want to really mess around with building your cities up too much, you can choose a certain profile, kind of government style profile, where the public sector will just build itself up for you, and you can pretty much ignore it, at least until the higher difficulty settings. It's a brutally difficult game if you don't know what you're doing. It's got some nasty gotchas, especially with the logistics system, where sometimes, if I had a pound for every time my logistics system suddenly failed and all my cities start starving and I can't figure out why, then I'd have about 20 quid. It's got problems, man, Shadow Empire. And despite all the problems that it's got, it's still better than all of the rest of the games on this list for me. So, but it has got problems. So, I don't know. Like, I think to be objective, I'm going to have to put it as an S tier, as an A tier game, even though I think it's better than all the other games on the list. So I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to say. However, that being said, Vic is constantly polishing it, and a lot of the stuff that's going wrong that I don't like about it, he's kind of fixing. So I'm tempted to just stick. I think I'm just going to leave it as S because you know, this is a personal list. This is no one else's opinion, but my opinion is that this is the best game on the list, and I just think that. Yeah, I wouldn't feel right, but I don't know. I just want you to know that I did have to think about this really hard. Like some days I think Shadow Empire's down here, but for the most part, it's again if there was like a level between S and A, I think Shadow Empire would quite rightly be nestled in between them. But I'm going to put it as, because it's my favorite game, I'm going to put it as an S tier. But just be aware that yeah, it's got problems, and the problems are in no way enough to. I mean, has it got more problems than Dominions? Well, no. Well, maybe yes. Maybe yes. For the intended purpose of the game that you're playing, like for example, as a multiplayer game, Dominions has got less problems, I think, than Shadow Empire. Distant Worlds Universe has probably got less problems than Shadow Empire. However, I still think Shadow Empire, you know, really, if we were doing a list of, you know, what does Ben have the most fun out of? Shadow Empire would be, you know, S+. Sins of a Solar Empire Rebellion. A tier. I haven't played this as much as other people, I don't think. In fact, I've only really just started playing it quite recently. And it's as much, again, like AI War and Star Ruler 2, it's probably as much an RTS as it is a 4X. So it's very loose. This is like, we're really pushing the boundary of it being a 4X game, I think, here. But I've included it because I think it's a dead good game, and I think that other people like to include it on these lists. So, Sins of Solar Empire. It's an RTS with a grand scope. You conquer planets and, you know, resource management them like you would in a 4X game. You build up fleets, and then you go and engage other players. There's diplomacy in it. It's a 4X game in a loose sense. It's I mean, you know, look, if Sins of a Solar Empire is a 4X game, then X4, you know, the X series should probably be a 4X game as well. And I actually forgot to put that on here, and that would have annoyed so many people, me putting that on. But I think it's a 4X game. Anyway, Sins. Yeah, it's superbly executed. There's a reason why this game is still going, and I think it was the original version was made in like 2009 or something. It's like an old game now. And Little Bird tells me that, you know, there might be a sequel in the works. I'm not sure about that though, but I have heard rumours on the grapevine that there might be a sequel in the works. So it's obviously popular. It's sold a hell of a lot of copies. Like Stardock have done well out of this one. And whoever the original company was, the developer that made it. Yeah, I'm not going to say too much about Sins. Go and check it out. It's an exceptionally good game. It's got it could even be an S tier game for the kind of game that it is. It's just I won't put it as an S tier. The reason being is, one, I don't enjoy it quite as much as the other S tier games, and two, because I really don't like the voice effects, the sound effects in it. They really let me down. Just like the music in AI War just stops it from being an S tier. I hate the voice acting in Sins of a Solar Empire is terrible. So it really bugs me. But other than that, it's a solid game. It's a solid game, that is. Like, if you've not got Sins of a Solar Empire and you like either 4X games or RTS, why haven't you got this game? It's amazing. Okay. Oh, I kind of annoyed myself that I missed Alpha Centauri off. So can I just, like, let me just say so. Alpha Centauri is an S tier game, okay? It's not perfect, but it's damn near perfect. And, you know, you all know what that game is. It's, yeah, let me just imagine, if you just imagine up here, along with the S tier, there's Alpha Centauris up here. Largely because of the just incredible way that it's just been put together. Stars in Shadow. B tier. Stars in Shadow is one of the better Master of Orion 2 remakes. You know, now I think about it, I think I'm going to put Interstellar Space Genesis down into C. Because I think when I look at all these other games, how much I enjoy them compared to this, I think this is going to be down here. Sorry, Interstellar Space Genesis, because you are a good game. I just don't think you're as good as Stars in Shadow. So Stars in Shadow is a Master of Orion 2 clone. It's probably a little bit unfair to use that term, but that's the kind of game that it is. It's a Space 4X game in the style of Master of Orion 2. It's way better than Master of Orion 2, in my opinion. The tactical combat in it's like way more fun. The building system in it is way more fun. It's like loads more meaningful. You've only got limited building slots on the planets, and you have to pick your planets depending on what slots they've got. The factions are really cool in it. I don't know if they're quite as thematic as the ones in Master of Orion 2, but some people don't like the art style. I love the art in Stars in Shadow. I think it's really good. By the way, if we were ranking the music, Stars in Shadow would be an S tier game. It's got incredibly good music. Just as an overall package, it's dead good. It has got its problems. I think that what are the problems with Stars in Shadow? I think it suffers from some of the same issues that Master of Orion 2 does, in the sense that very large games can become a bit unwieldy with having to manage all the the planets. It's way easier to manage though than Interstellar Space Genesis, I'd say, because it's a simpler system. The static research tree is the same every time. I don't mind that. I don't think it's a problem. Some people don't like it. Sven, the developer, said that he doesn't think that that transplanting a randomized tree would actually work in Stars in Shadow, and I'm inclined to agree. That's one thing, by the way, that Interstellar Space Genesis does have going for it. You can have either a randomized tree or a non-randomized tree, and that's really cool. I like you can play with that there. I just like Stars in Shadow. I find it hard to describe exactly what it is. It's been a while since I played it, but I think it's a very tight game. It's also got very good AI. The AI, it's quite difficult as well. The AI in it is an A tier game, and difficulty, you know, if we're saying that difficulty is good, then it's like it's an A or an S tier game. It's really quite difficult, Stars in Shadow is, especially since some of the later patches. Yeah, I haven't got much more to say about it. I think out of all the Master of Orion like games, apart from Remnants of the Precursors, it's the best one. Okay. Oh, why is Heroes gone all the way back here? Let's do Heroes next, because it's kind of out of place. Heroes of Might and Magic. This is only a loosely, like, I kind of had a discussion with somebody about this and whether it's a 4X game or not. I think it's a little bit too simple to be a 4X game, maybe. But Heroes, what is it? Again, it's somewhere between A and S, isn't it? It's like, it's got its problems. It's like, it's a bit, I find it can get a little bit boring towards the end once I've I don't know, like I think that's a sort of very generic 4X kind of problem, but sometimes I find it drags a little bit. But it's just an incredibly good game, isn't it? Like, I didn't play Heroes 2, and I know a lot of people love that one. I actually started the series with 4 when it was back in 2000, or when it was released. I actually bought Heroes of Might and Magic 4, and I like that game a lot. But I've come back and played Heroes 3, and I prefer Heroes 3. Like Master of Magic, there's just an incredible amount of builds you can come out with. Kind of like Conquest of Elysium 4, though. You're a little bit limited with what you get. So, you know, you don't get to choose all your characters. Sometimes if you don't pick it, you might be lumped with a weird character, and then you'll just have to build that character around the items that you find and the spells that you go for. But yeah, the tactical combat in it's really good fun. It's got an incredible amount of scope. There's loads of variety in the factions. Some of the factions don't work. I think that you probably need to mod it in order to get the best out of it. But again, everybody knows what this game is about. I think it's an A tier game. I think it's somewhere between A and S. It's great fun. Sorcery King Rivals. I quite liked this, but I don't think it's a great game. I think I'm going to put it C or D. I can't make up my mind. I really like the presentation of it. I love the Sorcerer King himself. He's dead menacing. I think that the combat in it's good. It's a little bit light for a 4X game, but the quest system kind of makes up for it. It wasn't what people were wanting from a game setting in the elemental universe, I don't think. But it was quite brave in that it's the only other game on here that's very asymmetric, like AI War. So you've got this massively powerful enemy, and you've got to kind of take him on in a smart way, because if you try to just go for him straight at the start, he'll crush you like a bug. I like Sorcery King. I know a lot of people really think it's rubbish, but I think it's I think Rob liked it as well. Although I think he'd probably agree with me. It's probably a C tier game, somewhere between C and D. It's got a lot of problems. It's not very replayable, and I've not really given it a huge amount of time, as I think, as I said at the start of the game, at the start of the video. So yeah, Sorcery King. I'm going to put it a C tier game, just it's got such great ideas in it, and it's kind of quite well executed. It's just I don't know. It's not the best 4X game really. Space Tyrant. I'm going to put this in D tier. Like, I think it's a good game. I think it's well produced, and it's just it's designed to be a quick to play 4X game. But unfortunately, I'm sorry, but you have suffered the unforgivable crime of looking and feeling like a mobile game, and I just cannot get over that. Like, it's just, and I think that's really doing the game a disservice, because I think it's quite a good game. So again, like I said, there are no games on this list that are bad games. I don't waste my time with bad games. Space Tyrant isn't a bad game. I just don't like it very much. I couldn't get into it. I thought it was a bit cheap, and it felt a bit, you know, I like the humor in it. I thought the graphics were okay, but it just felt a bit too simple. It's too simplistic for me. That might be to your liking, and some people really like this game. And I think I gave it a positive review on Steam, but I'm not that keen. Star Ruler 2 is another one of these games that really not enough people played. I think Star Ruler 2 is going to go in a B tier, and I'll tell you why. For everything that it does really, really well, it kind of falls back on something. So, whilst I really like the extensive shipbuilding thing, you know, the shipbuilder, you know, you literally paint your ship in with all the components. That's dead cool, but it's just, it feels a bit too much sometimes. The scale of the game's huge. You can make it, it's like Galciv, you can make it some incredible distant worlds, but probably even more so. Like, this game is, you can make it so that you can really break your computer with how big the maps are. Like, honestly, just go boot it up. And this game's free now. You can download this game for free. It's free to play, although it doesn't come with the music. If you buy the Steam version, you'll get the music. The music isn't bad in the game, but yeah, it's been made free to play. It's got a really weird diplomacy system. You know, it's got like this card-based sort of system in it. The factions are all a bit forgettable, I think, but and it's kind of it's like a real-time game, a bit like Solaris and the others, and Distant Worlds, but it's kind of, you know, real-time, you know, kind of real-time with pause, I suppose. You make a lot of use of pause. It's got a fascinating way of system management, so you have these supply logistics chains where you take over planets very easily, and then you link them together in order to support one another, building different kind of produce in order to support your next planet. So you have these very complex networks of, you know, of resources in order to get the things that you want. I think that part of the reason why it didn't do so well is that well, I don't really know, actually. I can't really answer that question, actually. I don't know why it didn't do so well. I keep trying to play it, and I like it while I'm playing it, and then I find that I think that it's just too big sometimes. This is one of these games that needs a bit more direction and gets a bit squashed under its own weight. I kind of want to put it in A because it's a very good game, but I think with regards to how much I've enjoyed it, I think it's going to have to be a B tier. Like, I like playing Armageddon Empires way more than I like playing Star Ruler 2. But Armageddon Empires has these problems, and I think Star Ruler 2 probably has less problems than that game, but it's still, yeah, I don't know. It's not, there's something about it. Again, I'm sorry, it's not really very satisfying when someone says I can't quite put my finger on why it is that I don't like this as much as I should. But this is one of those games, a bit like Endless Legend. It doesn't always grab me, but it is a cool game. It's just, I think it was just a bit too different to anything else, and I think perhaps it was just a bit too much. And it came out at the same time as Stellaris. Where does Stellaris go? I'm going to surprise people, but I'm going to put Stellaris as a B tier. People are going to be surprised at that, because I know that I kind of rip on Stellaris, but I do. Stellaris has got a lot of problems, a lot of problems, and I think it's clear now that Paradox are struggling with the game engine to the point where they're never going to be able to fix it. So I think that it's going to always have problems. They keep adding more stuff to it instead of fixing base game stuff. But they are like, look, the latest patch that came out with Nemesis, I think it's the one named after Philip K. Dick, the Dick pack, which, you know, I think they knew what they were doing with that. But Stellaris isn't a Dick game. It's you know, I want to be a bit fairer to Paradox, because sometimes I think, you know, at eXplorminate we delight a little bit too much in ripping Stellaris. And if in case we've not said this before, and I'm pretty sure we all have, all of us, we all want Stellaris to be a really good game, because it's got the potential to be an S tier game. Like, it should be up here, but it's not. And the reason is because I just think that there's just been too many people at the helm of that game somehow, maybe. Or they just listen too much to fan feedback to the point where they're trying to take it in so many directions at once that they just, I don't know. They split the fan community, they've split the community down the middle when they came out with that 2.0 update, which stripped back a lot of stuff. But let's face it, man, Stellaris on release was a bad game. It wasn't a good game. And it's better now. But look, those playing figures, you can't deny it. You cannot deny that Stellaris is a popular game, that a whole lot of people love it, and I've had a lot of fun with it, and I have most fun with it where, you know, you're kind of making this wonderful faction and taking it all these different ways. I just don't like the combat very much in it. I don't think the war system in it's very good at all. I find the population management laborious, although I've not played the Dick patch, but apparently Dick has changed it now to the point where there's less, you know, there are less pops to manage, and they, you know, the cynic in me thinks that they've done that because they're struggling with the game engine actually, and the performance issues are partly down to the pop system. So I think that's partly the reason why they've reduced it. But my good friend Omar at eXplorminate, he assures me that Stellaris is a much better game now with this latest update. I've got Nemesis, I've got it to play. I'm going to play it over the summer at some point. And I think when I've enjoyed it, I've really enjoyed Stellaris. I'm just disappointed that it's not here. Like, Paradox, what are you doing? Like, it should be an S tier game and it's not. I kind of want to put it down in C tier even. The reason why I'm going to put it into B tier, sorry, which is great game got some problems, is because it's a great game got some problems. Basically, the game is boring in the mid game. It starts getting boring in the mid game and it gets very boring towards the end. I think Federations and Nemesis have tried to do something to make that better. So I'm actually going to put it in a B tier. I'm partly going on what Omar has told me. And what his review for eXplorminate said, because he thinks it makes the game a lot better now. And he said that, but he did say that if you're a sort of player who got bored of Stellaris in the end game, it probably hasn't changed that much. So overall, you know, when I'm not kind of being egged on by the other guys at eXplorminate who also got a bit of a bee in their bonnet about this game, when the chips are down, I'm going to say that Stellaris is a B tier game, but it's not, you know, do I enjoy it as much as, I don't know, do I enjoy it as much as Armageddon Empires? No. Do I enjoy it as much as Age of Wonders 3? Probably about the same. Do I enjoy it as much as Conquest of Elysium 4, Fallen Enchantress, Age of Wonders, Planetfall, Stars of Shadow? No, I don't. Yeah, I think it's going to be C then. But like, it's some, again, if there was a tier between C and B, I think Stellaris would go there. I really want to like this. I really want to like this game, just like with Endless Legends. I really want to like this game as well. I don't care about Endless Space now. I've realised that I don't think I'm ever going to get on with that. But Endless Legend I really want to like, and Stellaris I really want to like. I just, you know. But look, Paradox, man, you're in the same tier as Sorcery King rivals. And what are you doing? Yeah, it's somewhere between these two. But, you know, I want Stellaris to be better. So let's hope that something that they do to it at some point magically fixes all the problems. Okay. We're getting near the end now, and this has been nearly 2 hours, so let's try and wrap this up. Sea of the Awakening. B tier game. definitely. I think that Thea is, and I've put Thea here instead of Thea 2 because I haven't really played Thea 2 that much, and I like the combat system in Thea 1 better, so that's why I picked Thea 1. I think that I love the art in both games. I think Muha have done a really, really good job of these games. I think they're... look, when I've put Thea here, just you can interchange Thea 2 for this as well. I've not honestly played Thea 2 enough to really give it a fair shake, but I understand that, you know, it's a similar game. I like Thea. I really enjoyed Thea. It's more like Conquest of Elysium, and it's got like kind of roguelike sort of feel to it. It's also like a bit of an RPG thrown in, player versus environment. It's got story-based stuff. I get bored of story-based stuff quite quick, but I don't know why, but I really enjoyed the hunter-gathering stuff in it. You know, like you're gathering stuff, bringing stuff back. I hate crafting in games, by the way. I really, not hate it, crafting's one of those fads that I wish would die in games, because I just really don't like it. Like, you know, just get rid of it. But in theory it works. I don't know why. It just, like, Minecraft crafting works because that's where it came from, and it works in theory as well. I don't know why. I just quite enjoy it in that. I really don't like it in RPGs and other stuff, but in 4X games, like, just crafting, get in the bin. But I really like Thea the Awakening. I love the vibe behind it. I thought the artwork was really, really great. It had a bit of an edgy vibe to it even. I just think that the kind of Slavic sort of mythology behind it's really fascinating. Yeah, great game. Thea's a really good game. I know Nate, who hasn't really done much with eXplorminate for a while because he's been taking a break because he's so busy. But Nate is an absolute lover of this game, and I'm with him on that. I think it's a great one. Warlock 2, The Exiled. B-tier game. Warlock 2 is basically Civ 5 if Civ 5 was a Fantasy 4X game. It's quite close to... It looks and feels quite close to Civilization 5. Where it's fun is that it's quite fast-paced. It's got dead good fun combat. It's massive. That's one of the problems with it. I find that the game is so big that it takes so long to finish that I just honestly don't bother. You really, really need to play this with all the DLC and with Renaissance Mod, because that guy who's done Renaissance Mod is a professional developer, and he's made it's like one of the most seamless, apart from Caster of Magic, I'd say, it's one of the most seamless mods I've ever seen. It's like it adds 3 new factions, and they're almost indistinguishable from the original in the sense of, you know, trying to look for a problem in it. He's fixed all the bugs, most of them. I think he's just fixed all the problems of the game. I didn't really play Warlock 2 very much until I got Renaissance Mod, so most of my experience with the game is with Renaissance Mod. But this is a solid game. It's just a bit too big. It doesn't grab me as much as some of the others, but the time I've spent with it I really enjoyed. I think that, you know, it's a solid game. It's got a fun sense of humour. The bad Sean Connery accent in the intro it does it for me. I think that everything about the game is silly, and it doesn't take itself too seriously. Kind of like Conquest of Elysium 4. It's got that irreverent sense of humour that just really, but it's not overdone, and it's just great. I think it's a really good game. It might even be an A tier game with Renaissance Mod, but I think I'm going to leave it as a B because I'm not quite sure. Soren Johnson's Old World. Where is this? I'm right. I'm going to have to be honest and say that I've not played this a great deal in the last 6 months or so. So I'm going on what, you know, on the sort of pre-release version or the alpha. I think Old World for me is a B tier game. I think I like a lot of what it does. It's not grabbed me, and you'll see that's a common thing for me with B tier. That's why when I was saying, you know, the tier list isn't just this one's better than this one and a little worse than this one. I have kind of thought about it in my own way, in a little bit of a, you know, like, what is it about the B tier that I think is important? And I think with B tier, often they're just really, really good games that just haven't quite grabbed me yet. That's why Stellaris is kind of like hovering between B and C, because, you know, I want to play it more, but it just bores me a little bit in the old game, in the end game and the mid game. Old World, I wasn't in love with the kind of... Okay, so it does its best to cover the fact that it's a min-maxing 4X game. in the same way as kind of Gladius is. It's kind of like a combat-based 4X game, I guess, with all these kind of story events. And when I was playing, at least, there were too many, and I was just like, oh, there's 3 or 4 of these to read every turn. I understand that they've reduced the frequency of those now, Mohawk, and it's like, you know, it's a really good game. I like the combat in it. I like the different factions. I like how the cities build out. I just need to play this one more, and that's the problem is, I felt that about it since I first played it, and I've not been able to get into it. So I think that the times that I've played it, I've really enjoyed it, but it's rare that I go back and finish a game of it. So, but I like the order system. I think that's quite revolutionary, even though I think it's been done in other games maybe. But you know, so you have this certain amount of points every turn, and you use them to distribute them between the units that you need to move the most. So it stops you from having to move like this whole empire's worth of stuff. You have to kind of pick and choose what's important. I can't remember there was something about the tech tree I didn't like, but yeah, Soren Johnson makes good games, man, and you know the AI in the game is pretty good. I think Rob's been playing this on the channel. I need to go and watch him really and kind of catch myself up with it, but I'm going to put it in B because I think it's a solid game. It's just one of those that I'm putting in B because I think that I'm not really qualified to say whether it's worse or better than my initial experiences. So yeah, I'd probably put it somewhere between these two. Probably B. Remnants of the Precursors. I think before Ray integrated the AI stuff by was it Modnar, or was it, I forget who it was, somebody made an AI update for it. Coda or Modnar, I can't remember which one it was. But I would have said it was an A tier game. But now it's had the AI updates and it's really hard. I think it's an S tier. It's one of my favourite 4X games. It's Master of Orion, so it's based around Master of Orion. It's pretty much the same game, but Ray Fowler has made an incredible job of polishing it up, giving it a brand new lick of paint, a new UI, which is like, it's got some it's such a good UI. Like it's every now and again, if I've not played it for a while, I kind of struggle with some of the, you know, is it left click or right click here? I've forgotten. Other than that, I think the UI in the game is revolutionarily good. Like, stop looking at Endless Legend and that same interface that Endless Legend always uses for some reason, and start looking at Remnants of the Precursors, please, developers. Look at that game. That is like the whole I forget, is it the planet screen where you can sort it by exploit, expand, exterminate, all that, and that at a glance tells you which planets you've not fully built out your factories on, which ones are, you know, within your colonization range, you know, where like how many missile bases you've got. You can all you do is you hit a key on the keyboard and instantly you've got that information. There's no menu diving, none of, you know, it's like, it's such a great system. The fleet screen and the planet screen, at a glance, you can use sliders just to set all the stuff. That's partly facilitated by the fact that, you know, Master of Orion is a relatively simple game by today's standards, but it's such a tight game. And, you know, yeah, Ray Fowler's knocked it out of the park, man. He's like, he's fanatical about this game. He loves it. He loves Master of Orion. You can tell, like, you can tell he plays it all the time. Ray's told me behind the scenes that he gets himself completely addicted to the game from time to time, and he realizes that he stopped developing it, he's just playing it, and that is a good sign. When the developer is playing his game, you know, and just completely addicted to it, you know that it's probably, you know, he probably loves it enough that he's qualified to be working on it. I just think that Remnants of the Precursors is a top-notch game. I have got some complaints about it. I think that the tactical combat screen could be a little bit prettier. I think the tactical combat stuff might need a little bit of work. You know, he's always adding new stuff though, and for bang for your buck, yeah, this is the best game on the list because it's free. It's completely free. All you need is Java, and in fact, I think the latest version he's working on now actually has you don't even need to install Java. I think it just comes with an executable file that you know, that runs as an executable. So there's no excuse for you not to play this game. It's still one of the best 4X games by a long way. It's so easy to play. Yeah, it's so tactically rich. Now that the AI is really good on it, I think that it's finally taken its place as one of the best 4X games ever made. And I do not say such things lightly, but Master of Orion's a fantastic design. Remnants of the Precursors has polished it up, removed all the bugs. There is absolutely no reason to go back to Master of Orion now, other than for nostalgia. You know, I know there are a few famous players who've kind of like turned their nose up at it because, well, you know, if I'm going to play Master of Orion, I might as well just play Master of Orion. It's like, why? Why give yourself RSI with all that clicking? And I know the graphics are cute and the music's great and all that, but Remnants of the Precursors is a superior game in every stretch of the, but in every way now, shape and form. Ray he's stuck to the spirit of the original game, but he's made some little changes to things like diplomacy to stop the player from being able to cheese the AI. Like, you know, when Ray's noticed players making, you know, gaming the AI, he changes it. So he's really kind of like, he's really made a real effort to polish this game up. It's an S tier game, and no, I'm not going to say any more about it. Wow. Okay, so that was a 2-hour video. So sorry about that, guys. I might even have to split this one up, but this is my 4X game tier list. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm hoping that Rob and maybe even Sean or Direxy or some of the others might actually come and do this, and I bet you'll see a very different list. Some of them, I'm really not happy with some of the placements. Like Age of Wonders Planetfall, is that an A tier? Maybe. Is Conquest of Elysium an A tier? I think I might make that an A tier, even though it's got problems. You know, like I was alluding to earlier on, the issues that people have with Conquest of Elysium 4, I mostly don't have. And I do wonder if part of the problem I have with the game is largely stuff that I've picked up from like hanging around the forums. Because when I think about it, I can't really think of anything that really bugs me about a Conquest of Elysium. Beyond, you know, sometimes you're just having a bad start and it being very hard. But I think that it's so customizable. Yeah, I think Conquest of Elysium is going to have to be an A tier actually. I'm gonna do it. It was paining me to keep it down there. Some of these others as well, like Stellaris is just Stellaris. I just don't know. It's like I kind of want to make it B tier, but I think just because of the fact that I do have some serious problems with it, I think it's going to be BC. Again, Space Tyrant kind of could be a C. Endless Space probably could be a C for I think for most people Endless Space is kind of up here, but I don't get on with it. Deity Empires as well. It's like I really want to like that game. Like that could be a C as well. I think I'm gonna promote Deity Empires to C because I don't think it's as bad as I've made out. I think that actually it's a very good game. I just think that it needs a little bit more direction. And in all fairness, I haven't played it for about 6 months. So I really need to play this again to really give it a fair shake. And I think you could probably say that about a lot. Like Gladius, I've not played since. I've not even played the Eldari update yet. Or the Eldar. I don't know what these newfangled names that Games Workshop are coming up with. The 40k races. But, you know, the Eldar, basically. The Space Elves. I've not played them yet. So I don't know if they've made the game rubbish or not. But I highly doubt it. Relic and Mate, they're incredibly good. I think, is it Relic? No, it's not Relic. I forget who made this one. But anyway, the people who made this game, they are really good. They are superb developers. So I don't think that's going to have made it a thing. Shadow Empire as well. It's like, kind of want to put it in A tier as well because some of the obscurity and the fact that even though you can know the game quite well, it can still screw you. And just because, you know, if you want to play a multiplayer game of it, sometimes you've got to restart 20 times because it's just the start's awful for everybody. So Shadow Empire as well. I kind of wish there was a tier beneath, but it's going to get an honor. It's got to get an honourable mention in S. And I think because it's just because it's my favourite game. There are no games on this list, yeah, where I turn them on and don't occasionally go, actually, I don't want to play that, except Shadow Empire. That's the only game, yeah, that I can play anytime. I never get bored of it. It's always fun. Like, it doesn't frustrate me. I mean, it can frustrate me, but it never frustrates me to the point where I don't want to play it. Like, sometimes Conquest of Elysium 4 can frustrate me to the point where I don't want to play it. Whereas, you know, because I'm just like, oh, God, you know, and then I'll turn it off, like rage quit. Whereas I never get that with Shadow Empire. I just want to get better at it. So yeah, these are the best 4X games in my opinion. Civ 4, Distant Worlds, Universe, Dominions 5. If you're playing in multiplayer, that is. If you're playing in single player, it's down here somewhere. Gladius, Shadow Empire, and Remnants of the Precursors. And all of these, but yeah, just as in case you've not got sick of me saying it, all of these games are good games, by the way. They're all good in their own way. Even Space Empires 4 is a fun game, you know, like providing you don't care that the AI doesn't do anything, and you know, Space Tyrant's cool as well. So, okay, guys, I'm going to save that. If anybody wants to come on and have a bit of a play around with it and see what, you know, and make their own tier list for 4X games, go ahead. I hope you've enjoyed that, and you thank you for sticking with it for 2 hours if you've made it this far. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you in the next. Well, do I do another tier list? Might do. Maybe I'll do a tactics game tier list next. That might be fun. All right, guys, take it easy. See you later.